Okay, Year 11, welcome to your video tutorial. Today I'm going to introduce you to the software development cycle. Okay, when developing a piece of software, there are 5 basic stages: defining and understanding the problem, planning it, implementing it, testing it, and maintaining it. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, these are the big things that you need to understand. Every software program is a system. A system is made up of inputs, processes, and outputs. It is important, therefore, before we develop a solution, to fully understand what our system is and what is required of it. So, is there anything else existing? Let's talk to the people who are going to use the system. What are my functional requirements? What are the specs that my system needs to meet? Are there any performance requirements for my system? And lastly, identify the inputs, the processes, and the outputs. And this is the section we're going to particularly look at today in terms of the first stage of the development cycle, which is defining and understanding. Okay, inputs, processes, and outputs. When looking at any system whatsoever, to first identify the IPOs, or the input, processes, and outputs, we look at what the system outputs. We start with outputs. We identify what comes out of the system. Then we go, okay, to get that information out of the system, what must have gone into it? And then once we do that, we can go, okay, let's marry the two together. If this goes in and that comes out, what process must occur in the middle? Welcome to your first system modeling tool, an IPO diagram. An IPO diagram is also called an IPO chart, same. It is a way of representing the inputs, processes, and outputs in the system. It says input, process, output. That seems like it's singular. Not necessarily. Any one system can have multiple stages, or multiple inputs, multiple processes, multiple outputs. Okay? It doesn't just have to be one. Let me show you the example. Okay, this is a really boring example, but it's really concrete, i.e. it's really straightforward, so hopefully you'll understand. This is an IPO diagram for making a cup of coffee. Okay? My output is a cup of coffee. That's where I start. I know that that's the output. Well, what's the input then? What has to go in to make a coffee? Well, coffee, milk, sugar, water. Okay, now this is not necessarily in any particular order. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be in this order. But okay, if I need water for my coffee, what do I have to do to the water first? Oh, well, I have to boil it. So water is going to be an input. Okay, and then I work on the processes. Once I've identified all the inputs, okay, then I have to boil it. Once I boiled it, and my other input is coffee. Okay, so that's my input, but what do I actually do? What process occurs to make the cup of coffee? Well, I have to put it in the cup. I have to pour in the boiling water, and I have to stir it. Okay, then once I've done that, okay, people have milk in their coffee. Okay, what happens to the milk? Well, the milk's an input. The process that happens, if required, add it. Same with sugar. If required, add it. What process then happens once you've added it? Do you just go, bazinga, I'm all done? No, you have to stir it. Then I get my output, my cup of coffee. So you notice if you start with the outputs, then move to the inputs, working out what processes occurs is really straightforward. And that's it, guys. That is inputs, processes, and outputs, which is one of the key concerns in the system development cycle, stage 1, defining, understanding, planning, and designing.